3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. You can head there 7 days a week for indoor and outdoor dining. You can also head there for takeout and delivery by calling 315-487-2222. That's 315-487-2222. So, inside the Cafe Kubal Studios, jam-packed show for you today of fantasy football advice. I'm so ecstatic to have this moment with you, and I want to first and foremost let you all know inside the Cafe Kubal Studios that you can fill your cup today with whatever you'd like from Cafe Kubal on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 208 North Townsend Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, including inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital, and of course, you can head off as well to 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. So a ton of great stuff coming from Cafe Kubal and a ton of great locations for you, and every location is eclectic. Everyone is different, so going to each Cafe Kubal is almost like going to a new local place. Even though they're all the same company, they all have their own personality. It's like loving a family and seeing that the brothers and sisters are all different. It's actually very cool. So make sure you head out to Cafe Kubal today and let them know that Wake Up Call sent you. So, inside of MonPazPopcorn.com is what's popping the entire show, not 10 to 11 this Wednesday, but all show today. We are talking fantasy football in the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. And I'm ecstatic about the opportunity to share this with Mike. Now, we're going to give you rankings. Mike has a bunch of stuff already up on his site. I'll be putting rankings up on my site as well. But this is to break down and go beyond that, beyond the names that you know, and to really dig deep, because you're going to have to, whether your draft has 8 owners, 10 owners, 12 owners, 16, 20, whatever it may be, you're going to have to dig deep. You need to know the names behind the names that you know. And that's why we're breaking down the backfields of the NFL so that you have everybody. Today we're taking a look around the NFC with all 16 teams of the North, South, East, and West, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. And when I say we, I mean myself and Mike Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com. Mike also of Winning Fantasy Football, the group we have on Facebook, which is an awesome group to connect to. You can ask us questions there and we'll help you out, and it's available to you 24/7. So with all of that being said, I proudly bring in the man of the hours today. Mr. Sofka, how are we doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, Dan?
I'm doing well, and man, listen, before we go anywhere, for those that don't know, the picture that I have up of you is of the bust from your fantasy football, from the Fantasy Football Hall of Fame. Tell us the story about how you became a Hall of Famer in fantasy.
Yeah, well, just playing fantasy football since the 90s and early 90s, and then I was contacted by somebody at Yahoo doing a promotion with Toyota, and they reached out to me and told me they were considering me for the Hall of Fame, and I was flattered, and they asked me to do an introductory video, and I did that, and it was some their voting and fan voting as well, and the second year of the Hall of Fame, I was inducted, and it's been an honor, and it's been almost life-changing in a way. I never realized what I was doing. I just did it. So I still do what I do, and nothing's changed in that regard. It's kind of like when you find the right person in your life. Being married is just a piece of paper. Well, to me, it's not that big a deal. To some people, it is to be in the Hall of Fame. But I'm definitely flattered, definitely honored, and I try hard to live up to that expectation in everything I do with fantasy football.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing. Like you said, sometimes people say marriage is a piece of paper or going to the Hall of Fame is a piece of paper, but it's so much more than that to those of us that really, truly care. So on behalf of Wake Up Call and on behalf of Dan Tortora Broadcast Media, I want to, once again, I know that you've had it for a while, but I want to congratulate you and just honor you today by truly letting you know that I appreciate the fact that you are so giving of your time and your energy toward fantasy football, and with all of that, toward Wake Up Call and everything you've done here. You have been a true testament to hard work, dedication, and determination, true friendship, and you've been one of the best people that I have ever had the opportunity to work with, and I can always count on you. And I think that those are things in life that cannot go understated or underappreciated. So on behalf of everything that I do, I want to say thank you today to you for everything that you've done.
Well, I appreciate it, and none of this on your show would be possible, and in other areas as well without you. So I appreciate it. Are we done? Are we done slapping each other on the butt? Are we done?
I got listen. I gotta throw some positivity towards you every once in a while. Come on now.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So with that being said, Mike and I are here, and we're here to talk about the NFC today. We're going to go around the NFC, around the league, and take a look at the 16 teams that comprise the NFC. We're going to start in the NFC North, and Mike, we're going to start with the Chicago Bears. Speak with us about the backfield of the Bears and what people should go toward, what people maybe should move away from when it comes to Chicago.
Yeah, this is a sticky situation. Tariq Cohen's going to get a lot of the passing reps, and David Montgomery is going to be more that solid back that they count on for the first and second downs. I think David Montgomery is going to stay on the field a lot more this year, though. I think they're going to need that stability. I think that they're going to bring Justin Fields in earlier, so I think that's going to bode well for David Montgomery. Not sure Justin Fields is going to start game one, but let the team go 0-1. Let something happen, or maybe Justin Fields does beat out Andy Dalton. So a lot of these plays we're going to be talking about today, a lot of these running backs, there's still some questions in the air about their offenses, about their quarterbacks, and I'll get into that team by team. But David Montgomery is definitely affected by how soon Justin Fields plays, and I think Justin Fields is going to play early in the year. So I have David Montgomery ranked number 20 on PPR leagues. I see some pundits have him, as high as 8. Now, to me, that's just way too high for David Montgomery in this situation in Chicago. Most have him in the teens. Some have him as low as 30. So I have him at 20. I'm comfortable with him there. I would have him on my team. But I'm really comfortable with Tariq Cohen as well to be like an RB4, maybe a flex person on my bench because, he's going to get the rep. If he gets 4 or 5, passes to him, that's wonderful. It's 4 or 5 points right there in a PPR league. Most leagues are PPR these days. Make sure you know your scoring system going in. A lot of people take that stuff for granted. Sometimes rules change if you're in the same group. But I like David Montgomery. I think he's worthy of being an RB2 on my team.
Yeah, David Montgomery, and I think you're right. I think a rookie quarterback coming in, when Justin Fields does start, he's going to have to trust in him. And he's going to have to dump the ball off. You don't want to throw the entire game. So, there is a lot to be said about that. That Justin Fields does affect the stock. I like that you brought that up of David Montgomery. Tariq Cohen, the thing with Tariq is that, he's obviously not your every down back. And he's a guy that, sometimes he frustrates the heck out of you because some days, you don't play him, he has 2 touchdowns. And other days you play him and he has 2 carries for 17 yards or maybe, 2 carries for 17 and a catch or 2. Sometimes his yardage is very, very quiet. But, if he's asked to be the PPR guy, and really catch the ball out of the backfield, then there is value with him as a flex. I do believe that, somewhere in the draft later on, you should pick him up. It's going to be interesting to see if people take him in like round 8 or if he falls to like a 10 or a 12 round. And, if he's falling in that position, you already have, maybe 3 or 4 running backs, then it's not a bad option to take him and put him on your team if you have 3 already. I think that in a PPR, that's where his value is. And as a flex is where his value is. I don't expect him to be a consistent 20-point get for you. But David Montgomery could be that type of running back, if and when Justin Fields takes over and we actually get to see them deliver the ball to David Montgomery. I'm a little concerned that Damian Williams is there from Kansas City, and that Khalil Herbert is a guy that they drafted. So I don't necessarily feel like they needed to bring in more guys, but they did. So, that's kind of I really want to watch the Herbert situation and the Williams situation. But for now, I think obviously David Montgomery is your starter, and Tariq Cohen's your PPR catch it out of the backfield guy, and that's okay. So there's some good that can come from this situation, but I agree with you. David Montgomery, top 20, not bad. You know what I mean? It's I can be okay with maybe the right outside of the top 20, but Tariq Cohen is more of that flex guy that you can lean on, and so I think they both have value. But Montgomery, to me, hopefully he'll be able to have some more output this year, because, there has been inconsistency with the team. Speaking of inconsistency, mother of the goodness, the Detroit Lions. Now, Jamar Jefferson signed a rookie contract. Jamal Williams came there from Green Bay within division. DeAndre Swift is there. This is a team that has had, as Mike and I know, they've had Theo Riddick. They drafted Kerryon Johnson and let him go. There's all of these players that they brought in to try to bring in Adrian Peterson. And so now it's DeAndre Swift, but they brought in Jamal Williams to be a compliment, but they drafted Jamar Jefferson, maybe in case Jamal Williams isn't a good compliment. What do you think about the Detroit Lions? Do you have any compliments for them, Mr. Sofka?
Yeah, actually, I think they did well in drafting DeAndre Swift. I think that was an answer for them. They had a need, and they answered it. Look, the NFL is not for long. That's what it really stands for, not for long. And the NFL has proved in recent years that not for long is really focused on the running back position. You don't see many guys getting to their second or third contract from the running back position anymore. And I think the teams kind of know that and expect that going in. So Kerryon Johnson has, a couple good years or semi-good years, outside of injuries with the Lions. And it's time to move on. Jamal Williams looking to find another home. Obvious he's not the guy in Green Bay, so he comes over and he's going to be the third down back. Make no mistake, DeAndre Swift is the running back here. Jamar Jefferson can come in, but he's an end of the 7th round pick. If he was if he was a guy who was going to threaten DeAndre Swift's job or threaten looks or touches by Jamal Williams, I'm sure he would have been drafted a lot higher than that. So I'm not saying anything bad about Jamar Jefferson. I'm high on him on my overall rookie board. He's number 35, but it's where he fits in here. And where you fit in the NFL as a rookie is, number one, you got to pass block. And if you can't pass block, you're not going to be on the field, because otherwise you're a mark. When you come on the field, everybody knows you're getting the ball. So in that respect, I still have DeAndre Swift as just outside the top 10, but still RB1 consideration at number 11 on my rankings here. Jamal Williams is a little further down. Jamal Williams is in the 40s, and that's okay. Number 44, that's where he is across the board. That's the average for Jamal Williams. But again, he's going to be that pass-catching guy. So there is PPR value in Jamal Williams, not so much in a standard league. DeAndre Swift, like I just talked about, just to give you a little peek inside here, there's a couple guys I know that are saying that he's a little bit higher than what I have him. Number 5, number 6 in the rankings. But overall, he's from number 5 through number 17, 18. I have him at 11. I think that's a good place for him. I think he'll do well on your fantasy team as your RB1.
Yeah, I think DeAndre Swift, because of what he's had to go through. I mean, this is a guy who was in a place that he didn't really know, because there was 3 backs, and I think being in the situation that he was in, what's going to happen with Adrian Peterson, what's going to happen with Kerryon Johnson, he wasn't the dominant guy, and in making the moves that they made, they essentially gave him the credit, and said, you're our guy now, like this is our guy. And I can appreciate that and respect that. And as a fantasy owner, I can, because now I feel better about drafting him. Not that I didn't want to draft him before, but it was, okay, how much time is he going to get? What's he going to get? How's he going to get? So now those questions have, been answered, of the fact that, he is going to be the dominant guy. Yeah, Jamal Williams is going to be utilized there, but, Jamal Williams, he's on a short leash. This is somebody who really didn't get it done in Green Bay. They kept him on the roster, I think, longer than I would have. And, they allowed him to be there, and they allowed him to, try to complement Aaron Jones. He had the opportunity to be the starter in the beginning. He had the opportunity to take over, and it didn't work out. And now here we are looking at him again. What can he be? I think that he is a late round addition for you. I don't think you should be wasting a pick on this guy. I think he's a guy that, you could just kind of pick up either late in your draft or even pick up in free agency. I do think he has value. I do think there's, arguably the guy that picks him up or the woman that picks him up might actually get a little steal with him. I do think that that's a potential possibility. But ultimately, I think it's all in DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift, listen, he's got Jared Goff. Now there's a change in the offense, and so Jared Goff is going to have to, as he gets acclimated in Detroit, dump that ball off. And he's not a rookie quarterback, but he is a new quarterback on the team. And so I think that, this helps DeAndre Swift, because when you're making that transition either from college to pro or from team to team, you're gonna lean on somebody, and you're going to, need that help here and there. And I think DeAndre Swift provides that help. I think he's a talented back. I think he's a guy who is, a steal depending on where you pick him up. I think some leagues might let him drop, other leagues might pick him early, and I think he is worth an early nod from you. I don't consider him the best of the best, but I do consider him to be, a rising star. So I do see a lot of value in the drafting of DeAndre Swift, and I think, that should be clear to anybody that's played fantasy. Mike, next up is Green Bay, who we just talked about, where Jamal Williams used to be. Aaron Jones is there. Kylan Hill got picked up and put onto the team. Patrick Taylor's there, Dexter Williams, and so on and so forth. But the second back is A.J. Dillon. They spent a draft pick on him. They didn't use him a lot. But now with Jamal gone, it's the transition, in my opinion, of, okay, we have Aaron, and it didn't work out with, with looking forward from Aaron with Jamal Williams. So now we have Aaron, and we give an opportunity to A.J. Dillon. What are your thoughts on the A.J. Dillon factor and what he can be, and just what you see from what he brings to the table? This 1-2 punch, could this 1-2 punch be better? Could it work out better than what we saw with Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones?
Well, I mean, he raised some eyebrows when he was drafted last year. It was like, oh, wow, what's going on? They're replacing Rodgers. They're going to replace Aaron Jones. I mean, they don't have a wide receiver. So Green Bay has a funny approach. I wish I could get into their heads sometimes, but Aaron Jones is still the guy. He's still the guy you want. He's still the number one running back there. He's still an RB1. Some people have him ranked as high as 3 or 4 in the running back category. In PPR league, I still have him ranked as 8. But the thing I like is A.J. Dillon. This is a second-round pick out of Boston College. This is a guy who's got tree trunk legs. This is a guy who's not heavy with them tree trunk legs, though. He can move. Look for him to vulture some goal line carries from Aaron Jones. But they did draft a guy. They brought in Kylan Hill. But again, just like Jermaine Jefferson, I think that this is a guy, 7th-round pick, late 7th round. I don't think he's going to threaten anybody. Out of Mississippi State, dynasty-wise, there's still some play for him long-term. He's still a credible athlete. He's going to make contributions on special teams, I'm sure. But the guy you're going to want is Aaron Jones. Make no bones about it. It's Aaron Jones' team. It's Aaron Jones' job to lose. Now, the scary thing is we haven't seen a lot of A.J. Dillon. So if something bad does happen to Aaron Jones, does A.J. Dillon really have the goods to back him up fully and step in and take over? I think he will. I don't think I make a play for A.J. Dillon. I think he's going to be overdrafted. I have him at 42. A lot of people have him right around that same mark, most in the 40s. So I would think that Aaron Jones is a comfortable pick for you to make with your RB1.
Yeah, I think Aaron Jones, he's a guy that I kind of played lower. I put him lower last year, and to the detriment of my team. I didn't have him as highly ranked or as highly thought of. And now this year, I mean, he's done a lot to show me that he needs to be higher on my list, and so he is higher on my list. I think Aaron Jones is a clear pick here. I think this is somebody who I'd put on the line with DeAndre Swift and say, he's there, you take him, he can be your dominant back. A.J. Dillon, though, I think he holds weight. I really do. I think that he has a place on this team. There's a reason why they drafted him. There's a reason why they brought him in, and Jamal Williams had 1 year to be in that backfield with A.J. Dillon, and look at what happened. So I think ultimately A.J. Dillon is a good pickup for you. He's not a bad third, depending on how deep your league is, third or fourth running back. So I do think he holds value, but Aaron Jones just signed a longer-term contract, so I would anticipate and expect Aaron Jones to get plenty of the carries, but A.J. Dillon will get some work in. And I talked to some people off in Green Bay, and I told them, I said, make sure you take care of my guy there. Make sure you take care of A.J. So we'll see what they do with him as we step forward. But I think that both of them hold value currently on this team, and I do think that, A.J. Dillon will drop in the draft, and when he does, maybe you can, scoop him up, because he could drop to a 9th or 10th round, depending on the depth of your league. Minnesota, Mike, they've made some moves. Amir Abdullah, who never fit in Detroit, another name I could have put there for Detroit, he is still in Minnesota. They let Mike Boone go, and Alexander Madison is now the number 2 guy. Dalvin Cook is obviously the number 1. Thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, you have to draft Dalvin Cook. I mean, if you got a top 3 pick and he's there, and I'll just go ahead and give away McCaffrey. I think everybody is on McCaffrey number 1. Dalvin Cook's the consensus number 2. This is a guy who you can count on. Well, no, you can't, because he's injury prone. But outside of that, when he's not injured, this is a solid running back. NFL guy all the way around, PPR, standard, doesn't matter, dynasty. Whatever league you're playing in, this is a guy that you can pretty much count on as long as he's healthy. Your best ability in the NFL is your availability. Most people have him ranked as the 2nd running back to take right after Christian McCaffrey, and I'm in total agreement. I don't think he has to come off the field for PPR purposes either. I think he's the pass-catching guy. Interesting pick in the 4th round, though. They take Kenny Nwangu out of Minnesota. Out of Iowa State. So this is a guy who I look to. They're going to try to get him involved. You're right on the Amir Abdullah thing. The guy out of Nebraska just hasn't taken anywhere. I took some chances on him years ago, and it didn't work out. And he's still around. So he may make the team. I think he's going to have trouble making the team where he is in his career. But the one thing I don't have trouble with is drafting Dalvin Cook. If I've got the 2nd pick, I'm going to take Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I think it's clear, and it should be clear to everybody that, Dalvin Cook is the pick to make. This is someone who, again, when he is healthy, he is extremely dangerous, and there's an if there about his health, but hopefully that if is no more, and he stays healthy and he stays well, because this team is they're a different team with them. They're in contention of winning arguably any game because of his threat and because his ability. So there's a lot of good to be had with him on your team. The question is just, can he stay healthy enough to be there for you when you need him? And the hope is that he will. But, ultimately, looking at this, situation with the Vikings, it's got to be Dalvin Cook or a bust. I don't know if I necessarily, think that he's a consensus number 2. I mean, his numbers are fine. His numbers are obviously good when he's healthy. But my concern with him is staying healthy. So Dalvin Cook is always kind of in the back of my mind, drafting him. There's that little note of what if he gets hurt again? But ultimately, I mean, that could be with any player. Obviously, Dalvin Cook has suffered it in the NFL, and you don't want to see it happen again. But this is a guy with tremendous value. It's a guy you don't want to play against. I think, what we really see in the NFC North, we see 3 number 1 running backs for you in DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones, and Dalvin Cook. And, Montgomery has some work to do. But ultimately, this is a good division of drafting. And there is value with Tariq Cohen, Jamal Williams, and A.J. Dillon. So just something for you to look at as we step forward here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And speaking of stepping forward, Mike and I will do exactly that as we move into our next piece, which will be the NFC South. And we'll be bringing you the NFC South right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, as we proudly bring you an entire look at fantasy value of every backfield in the NFC. Every single one of those 16 teams covered here today on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. This is the Fantasy Football Power Hour. Not one of and not a, but the Fantasy Football Power Hour. Proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Open 7 days a week for you and open for fantasy season right now.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvalite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvalite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, where you're listening live. You're watching live on facebook.com/livenowdt, and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, all inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. We're proud to have you here inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. This is the Fantasy Football Power Hour. Normally, Mike and I are together every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, but I gave us the entire show today so we could make sure in one full episode we could bring you every NFC backfield to get you set for your fantasy football draft in your upcoming league this season for 2021 and 2022. Mike and I have gone to the NFC North. We will now go to the NFC South, Mr. Sofka. So let us jump into the NFC South, and we will start off our conversation on the NFC South by going first and foremost to those Atlanta Falcons, who apparently are in an entrenched battle with Julio Jones. What are your thoughts on Atlanta, as Atlanta tried the Todd Gurley thing, and I wasn't sold on it. I don't think you were either last year. I said this is a one-year try, and it didn't work out. Now they have Mike Davis, who was the backup in Carolina to Christian McCaffrey, who filled in pretty nicely with Christian McCaffrey going out with an injury. Cordarrelle Patterson, who's been all over, and he was with Minnesota, he's with the Patriots, and so on and so forth. Quadri Allison, who comes from Pitt, who I covered with the Pitt Panthers in college. Tony Brooks, James, Javian Hawkins, and Caleb Huntley. What is Atlanta doing in the backfield, and is any of it worth drafting?
Yeah, actually, Mike Davis definitely is worth drafting. You know, I spoke of A.J. Dillon before having tree trunk legs. This is a guy who's got very big legs as well. And, you know, this is an incredible journey for Mike Davis after nearly washing out in his opening seasons in San Francisco. This is a guy who's overcome injury. This is a guy who's had an uphill battle, but he hasn't stopped. He's kept fighting. And last year, sure enough, when Christian McCaffrey goes down, he steps in and steps up and has a career year with 224 touches. So, I mean, he earned this trip to Atlanta to be the number one guy, and I don't think it's too much for him. I don't think the position is too much for him. A lot of people are like, oh, well, he had a one-hit wonder stepping in. It was a situation, and no, it's not. Mike Davis deserves the credit. Product out of South Carolina, drafted in 2015. I'm happy for the guy. I think that this is a smart move by Atlanta. However, they still back that up with a couple, late guys, a couple after draft signatures, Caleb Huntley out of Ball State and Javian Hawkins out of Louisville. I like Javian Hawkins the better out of the two. Quadre Allison's still on the scene, Tony Brooks James as well. But I'm okay with Mike Davis. I'm okay with that. But I'm going to temper my expectations. I'm not going to expect Mike Davis to carry my fantasy football team. Now, maybe if he's an RB3 and I have him on my team, maybe he carries me then. So I want to be careful how I say that. A lot of people have him ranked in the 20s. That's where I have him. Somebody has him ranked as high as 17 and as low as 35 is what I've seen. But, I like him right at 26, just outside RB2. So if I can snatch him up as an RB3 on my team, absolutely I will. I think I'll be pleasantly surprised. I think he has more upside. I know I'm tapping him down a bit, but at the same time, I'd rather give you worst case scenarios. I'd rather give you where he's at right now. In 2 months from now, if we do these rankings again, that may change. Maybe there's injuries to other players. Maybe he has an awesome camp, and look at him at the beginning of the season as well. He might be a guy that you can trade for early in the season if he's slow out of the gates. I don't think he's going to be slow out of the gates. I think he's going to catch the balls out of the backfield. I think he's going to be the 3-down back there. And I think Mike Davis is a good guy to have on your fantasy football team. Again, as long as you don't expect more than RB3 numbers.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Mike Davis, we look at his numbers. He started his career in San Francisco, and with San Francisco, he had 58 yards on 35 carries, no touchdowns in 2015. Then he had 50 yards on 19 carries with 1 touchdown in 2016. Then he went off to Seattle and had 68 rushing attempts for 240 yards, no touchdowns rushing. Then the next year in Seattle, he had 514 yards on 112 carries his first season with over 100 carries and had 4 touchdowns. And then he was on Carolina and Chicago and didn't do much that season until last season when he had to play with Christian McCaffrey going down, and he had 165 carries as most of his career in a season, 642 yards the most of his career in a season, and 6 touchdowns rushing the most of his career in a season. He also had 2 receiving touchdowns, which were the most of his career in a season as well. So he's coming off of his best career season ever in the NFL with 8 overall touchdowns, and with him having over 700 all-purpose yards and 165 carries. It was also the most starts he's ever had, 12 starts, and he tied his most games played with 15. He played 15 for Seattle back in 2018-19. So Mike Davis is trending upward. We know that he filled in for Christian McCaffrey pretty well. Didn't have the best situation, with everything going on. Quarterback situation, obviously they let go of Teddy Bridgewater. So, there's something to be said about where we are right now. And I think that ultimately my hope is that, Mike Davis can get something done for this team, because this team is hurting and reeling, and they're going to have to eventually move on from Matt Ryan. And not only that, but it looks like they may be moving on from Julio Jones. So, Mike Davis, I think, has been able to be put into an emergency situation before and come through. So I think he can come through for you. I just, like Mike said, would not be drafting him high. He's a guy that I pick up after I get 2 of my studs. So that's how I look at it. Next up on it, Mike, for the NFC South as we go throughout the entire NFC when it comes to the backfields. Carolina Panthers are next on the list, the team that Mike Davis was on. We have Christian McCaffrey. Chuba Hubbard was drafted low, but he is now the backup there. Rodney Smith is there. Reggie Bonifant, who played quarterback, played all over the place for Louisville, he's there. So what are your thoughts on the Christian McCaffrey factor? And Chuba Hubbard, does he get anything? Does he fill in? And gosh forbid anything happens to McCaffrey, can Hubbard be something to look at?
Yeah, actually, I like Hubbard. I think he did himself some damage this past year. And what I mean by that is he had an outstanding 2019 was awesome. He had over 2,000 yards rushing with 21 touchdowns. That's huge for a college running back. And this is a guy at Oklahoma State that they weren't afraid to take a 4th-round draft pick because they saw that production. Now, in 2020, he had a huge drop-off, but, that led him to opting out after 7 games. And it was kind of like, well, I can see I'm only hurting myself. I'm going to stop playing, make sure I don't get hurt, and get ready for the draft. And, everybody sort of had a write-off. Everybody sort of had a free pass last year with the pandemic situation that was all around us. I don't want to remember watching NFL games with nobody there. It's a tough sight to see, and it must be tough to play in that environment when you're used to playing in front of huge crowds. But make no mistake about it, Christian McCaffrey is the guy. He's the number 1 guy. He's the number 1 overall pick, not just the number 1 running back. And I'll let a little secret out of the bag right here. My first 6 picks overall are all running backs, and I normally don't sway that way. I normally take the best available player, regardless of position. But if I'm top 6, I'm definitely going running back. But Christian McCaffrey is number 1. Chuba Hubbard is definitely worthy of a number 2. He can be the next Mike Davis. He may battle Rodney Smith for number 2 with touches on the team, and I think that's going to happen because Chuba Hubbard has a lot of upside. So Christian McCaffrey, Chuba Hubbard, is he going to grasp the pass blocking situations? Are they just going to have him in there? I think they're going to mix him in every now and again to give Christian McCaffrey a bit of a breather. They'll have some special packages for Chuba Hubbard, but I think that Carolina is in an excellent position with Christian McCaffrey and Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah, and I do. I think that maybe they, obviously traded up here, getting Chuba Hubbard, getting this opportunity for him to come in and be, have an effect, have something, another wrinkle to this offense, which is very helpful. Again, another quarterback changing, Sam Darnold coming in, and so, needing to lean. Christian McCaffrey, great guy to lean on. When healthy, they try to bring him back and then bring him back again, and just going through the, they obviously wanted him to play and they needed his help, but it was, are they rushing him back and what are they doing? So I do like the fact that we are seeing, the emergence of, a potential nice 1-2 punch here with Chuba Hubbard. But Christian McCaffrey, obviously the guy for you to go to. I have a good feeling about Chuba, so I do think, he's worth a late-round pick for you, a late-round sleeper pick, and ultimately could help you out in the long run. And, God forbid, if anything happens with CMC. But beyond that, hopefully he stays healthy, he stays well. We're not talking about injuries to any of these guys, including Christian McCaffrey, and we can move forward here and have some fun with it and see what they could bring to the table, because I do think there's obviously a tremendous amount of value with Christian McCaffrey, and a healthy Christian McCaffrey does wonders for a fantasy team. I drafted him last year, and it was like the first time I had him, and I was really upset, obviously, with what happened. So I know some people might be a little bit nervous about it, and people will take advantage of that nerves if you have the number 1 or number 2 pick and you don't pick him. So Christian McCaffrey still high on the list, but Chuba, not a bad late-round flyer that you could take on a man. I think there's worse flyers you could take. Running backs of the Saints: Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray, in Onondaga County. Same, grew up in the same area that I grew up in here in Central New York. On the team as well, Ty Montgomery, who's been bouncing all over since he left Green Bay. Dwayne Washington's there, Tony Jones. Thoughts on Kamara, where he stands on the ranker, and if Latavius Murray is a valued back in the league?
Yeah, I think Alvin Kamara's situation is he's a downgrade, and I know it's weird to say those two things in the same sentence because of the quarterback situation. I'm still not sold as Jameis Winston. I think it could be Taysom Hill, and I think a lot of that is going to depend on Alvin Kamara, but a lot of Alvin Kamara is going to depend on who's at quarterback. So I've got Alvin Kamara as the number 3 running back. I got him number 3 overall. I see him as low as 7 and as high as 2, but I think the quarterback situation really can affect him here. Latavius Murray is locked in as the as the backup here. He's the premier backup to have when he was able to step in for Alvin Kamara a couple weeks when he was injured last year. It was like they didn't miss a beat. He was great. The one thing is, in a touchdown-only league, he may vulture some touchdowns from Alvin Kamara, so be on the lookout for that. I don't think Latavius Murray even wants to take, he knows his role, and that's okay. Some guys you got to understand, these athletes are the best in their area, the best on the team, the best this, all their lives, and then they get to the NFL and there's 52 other guys that are the best as well. So sometimes it's an adjustment. Latavius Murray's a pro at UCF. He's been in the league quite a few years. This is a guy who gets it. This is a guy who's a role player, and he got a good team. I mean, if I was him, I would do the same thing. Shut up and take your opportunities when you get them. Cash a check, get on the field, and maybe play for a Super Bowl. So, there is still an opportunity for New Orleans to make a move for a quarterback as well. I've heard Jimmy Garoppolo. I've even heard Aaron Rodgers, which I think that's nonsense. But what I'm saying is you gotta give this one a little more time to marinate. But without a doubt, Alvin Kamara, if I have a top 3 pick and he's on the board, I'm considering taking Alvin Kamara as my RB1.
Yeah, I think he's definitely an RB1. I just, we're in a situation now of are his numbers going to trend up or are they going to trend down? Could people draft him too high and some draft him too low? I think his value has dropped a little bit, but he still is a dangerous back, and PPR-wise, he's dangerous too. Latavius Murray right now to me is a flex and is worth taking later on in the draft, but he is a flex player in my opinion. The last team up that we have here, Mr. Sofka, are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the reigning Super Bowl champions, the only team to ever host a Super Bowl in their home stadium and win a Super Bowl in their home stadium that they were a part of here. They have Leonard Fournette back again. He had a 1-year deal, and ultimately Leonard Fournette is back. Ronald Jones is still there. Giovanni Bernard has come over from Cincinnati. Keyshawn Vaughn is there as well. CJ Prosise, people that forgot that name, from Seattle, he's also there. Thoughts on Tampa Bay's backfield?
Yeah, it's a muddled mess. I mean, it's mired in committee, and I'm staying away. I like Ronald Jones. I think he's okay. I like Leonard Fournette a lot. I think he's got a lot of talent. I like Keyshawn Vaughn, the play they made for him last year. I like Giovanni Bernard, a guy who they brought in, maybe the pass-catching third down guy. That may be the sneaky PPR pick, but don't get overly excited with any one of these guys. If you flash back to Tom Brady's days in New England, you never knew which running back to take and when to take him. Leonard Fournette, if I had one running back to choose, I would take Leonard Fournette. However, you just never know what's going to happen. I've got Leonard Fournette ranked as number 30 on the PPR rankings. Ronald Jones is 36. And then you can go to Giovanni Bernard at 55. So, I mean, they're going to cannibalize each other. It's not a good situation, but it's a great situation for Tampa because they know it's a next man up scenario. They're not going to skip a beat. They can do and pick their spots and have certain packages for certain players, and I think that's going to be evident as the year goes on. Health is going to matter. Which one of these running backs is the number one back at the end of the year? But, again, I'm okay with these guys as long as I don't expect too much. If I'm looking for RB4 and flex production, I'm not going to be disappointed. If I'm looking for them to be an RB2 on my team, I'm going to have a bad year.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing right now is, and you brought it up, and you brought it up very well, is, where we're at currently with the Bucs is it could be anybody, but they don't care. Tom Brady doesn't care. He doesn't care if these guys get 40 yards or 60 yards or 2 yards or 12 yards. It doesn't matter. It's a committee. He wants to win another championship. He wants, and these guys are on his team to win another championship. So, to say that Tampa Bay is going to consistently give you crazy numbers, Leonard Fournette could have a good day, then Ronald Jones could have a good day. That's how I think the season's going to go. Giovanni Bernard might be able to be good PPR. Keyshawn Vaughn might get involved. But I think ultimately people are going to get frustrated because it's going to be a little bit of Jones, a little bit of Fournette, a little bit of Fournette, a little bit of Jones. So does this situation bode well for you? No, not in fantasy numbers, but if you want to pick up these guys later on, I just think that Fournette and Jones as a combined effort make up one running back on your roster, and I'm always against having two spots given up in order to fill one need. I don't like giving up two spots for one need. I would rather I would rather take a chance on Mike Davis with Atlanta in his first season than have a combination of Bucks. I'd rather, obviously, McCaffrey is a given, but, Alvin Kamara, and give him an opportunity and lock him in. Fournette can't be drafted that high, shouldn't be drafted that high. And Ronald Jones, again, I mean, it's who's going to be the guy, because this could change. It very well could change as the season progresses. So people need to be prepared for that, and you need to understand that this is a team that's not going to necessarily give you exactly what you want when it comes to it. And I'm not giving up 2 spots for one player need. It's just not in my wheelhouse, and I don't think it's a smart thing to do when you're drafting. So unless you're, squirming at the end and you're desperate, which is a horrible place for you to be in, that's why we prepare you, so that you're not freaking out at the end of your draft. So be smart about it, and I'd probably stay away from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Unless you want to go late, I just don't see how this gives you tremendous value for whatever you pick and when you pick it. With that being said, Mike and I will take a step aside for another fast break. We're just about here to the bottom of the first hour, which is perfect timing for us to step into the other half of the NFC, as we will go to the East and the West. We will be covering the Cowboys, the Giants, the Eagles, you know how I feel about this, the football team. They're all football teams, Washington. Pick a name. This is like sitting in a car and having a bunch of people. Where do we go? It's like a family sitting in a car, 5 people sitting in a car. Where do we go for dinner? Just pick a place. We're starving. That's how I feel right now, Washington. Pick a name. Figure it out. Dare to be different. No, it's dare to be boring. Get yourself a real name and don't act like Congress and take forever to pass something. Figure out a name. You're in D.C. and you're acting like D.C. Please just find a name. Literally anything. The Scorpions, the Hammer Toads, the Bulldogs, the tripods. I'm looking at stuff in my studio right now. The camcorders, the tripods, light fixtures. I like the Washington bailouts. That's my thought. It's been my thought. They can put a little money on there, put a little happy face, whatever you want to do. But ultimately, they're going to have to figure it out, because I'm going to refuse to talk about them on my show if they don't. And then the NFC West, the Seahawks, the Niners, the Rams, and the Cardinals, we'll talk about all of them coming up right after this on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here.
Avicoli's Restaurant, located right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, is proud to be your local neighbor, growing with you for over 20 years. We're open 7 days a week for lunch, dinner, and drinks. For takeout, delivery, or catering, call us at 315-622-5100. When you order online and use our promo code AVS10, you will save 10% on your online purchase at myavicolis.com. And make sure to join us monthly for our live on-site broadcasts centered around Liverpool athletics. Avicoli's, your local, trusted neighbor right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road.
Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Appreciate you being here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, where sports truly meets that thing called life. So thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us inside the Cafe Kubal studios. I'm here with my guy, Mike Sofka, and having some fun here. Greg said this morning, I'm very surprised all the shade you guys throw at Jamal Williams. He said, I kindly disagree, but I also understand your love and support for Dylan. I do get it. It's not a love and support for Dylan. I have not been a fan of Jamal Williams for a long time. No offense to the person himself. He hasn't panned out. He goes lower. I mean, he's just dipped in fantasy value. He's not putting the numbers together. I look at it, from a standpoint of winning a championship. Jamal Williams doesn't bring a lot of value to my team. It's like Amir Abdullah. I mean, there's just certain guys that don't come through. They don't pan out. And Jamal, to me, has consistently not done anything for, to be a number 2 guy or a number 1 guy. He's really, for years, just not put the numbers together. So, Greg, I appreciate it, and I know we're not going to agree on all the picks and thoughts and whatnot on here, but if you want to draft Jamal Williams, you are in my fantasy league, and I'm okay with that. If you want to draft him, and I'll get somebody else. But, yeah, I don't see the value in Jamal Williams. I don't see it up to this point. So that's where I sit at this point. So, maybe he'll change my mind, and I hope he does. I want to see everybody succeed in the NFL. But as of right now, I can't support that pick. I'm not going to make that pick. So it's just not something that I see. I do think he holds some value now that he's on a new team. But I think, they drafted A.J. Dillon in the second round for a reason. So there's something to be said about that. And he's a very talented player. And I've had the opportunity to watch him firsthand. And he's got a lot. So there's something to be said about that. Dallas Cowboys, Mike, we're going to go to the NFC East and jump into that here. Unless you have any final thoughts on Jamal Williams, because like I said, we did have that comment come in that one of our listeners thinks that he should be given more credit. Thoughts on that? Any rebuttal to that?
No, not at all. I think it's warranted. I think that Jamal Williams is worthy of speculation as a flex player in a PPR league, but at the same time, he has some upside, but he's going to need some things to happen. He's just, DeAndre Swift is all of a sudden not going to be able to play, and I hope that doesn't happen. But maybe then Jamal Williams will get his chance and shine. So you never know. This is why we play the game. This is why we do what we do.
Absolutely. So, we'll see as they all come in, and we welcome your thoughts, and we welcome open discussion. Mike and I welcome everybody to our dinner table. We ask for 2 things: be respectful and justify your opinion. And you can do that on the Winning Fantasy Football group for free 24/7, joining us on Facebook by typing in Winning Fantasy Football and clicking on joining the group. Once you join our group, you will have access to ask us any questions and have open discussion, and we may agree and we may disagree, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you're all welcome at our table to have those conversations, because Mike and I learn stuff, and hopefully you learn stuff as well, and being open-minded and being open to learning and growing and advancing is what life is all about, and we've lost touch with that. So it's important to have open and honest and fruitful discourse that's respectful. Dallas Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, and then a bunch of other names that are not household yet. And thoughts on the Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard factor. Zeke has been injured at times. He's had disagreements with the Cowboys at times. He's had issues with the NFL at times, which is, given Tony Pollard from Memphis an opportunity to come in and do a couple things. Where is the value in Tony Pollard, and where do you put Zeke in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, I still like Zeke. I still have some confidence in Zeke. He had a down year. He had COVID over the summer last year. They had the injury to Dak Prescott. That affected his production. The defense had poor play. So, all of a sudden he's not running the ball as much because they're throwing the ball more with a backup quarterback at that. So, 6 years, $90 million extension, he's got to live up to that. So there is some pressure on him This is a guy who's capable of performing under that pressure, though. Remember, they make diamonds by crushing coal with a lot of pressure. That's how that's how they create a diamond. So there's enough pressure. I think he can do it. And he's my number 6 overall as well. Now, I've seen him as low as 12. I've seen him as high as 3. I'm comfortable with him at 6 overall, number 6 on the running back chart for me. But Tony Pollard is a big back. Tony Pollard is a guy who had an opportunity to fill in admirably for Zeke at times and hasn't really lived up to that expectation. I'm not saying he's a wash. I mean, he's worthy of end of a 4th round when they took him a couple years ago, but he could be an X factor. He could be a guy that gets on the field every now and again, gives Ezekiel Elliott a blow, and maybe he brings some shine. Hopefully he doesn't vulture any touchdowns for him in the red zone. But other than, I don't think the rookies that signed after the draft, Jaquan Hardy or Brennan Knox, are there to impose their will. It's Zeke's team. It's Zeke and Zach's team. And Tony Pollard's there in the mix, and Tony Pollard's going to be in the mix. And, if Zeke gets injured, Tony Pollard's going to be the guy. So look for that late in your draft. I think if you're tempering your expectations with Tony Pollard, but you have high expectations of Zeke, but I wouldn't put Zeke in front of McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara. I'm not going to get carried away, all right? He's number 6 on my rankings, so I'm very comfortable with him there. So if you're in the middle of the first round, you can be comfortable with taking him as well.
Yeah, and the thing is, Zeke, I mean, we look at his numbers and what he's done. I think, people say, he had a down year. I wasn't that great. Let's look at his numbers. This is what he did, okay? This is his career. He started off in the NFL with 1,631 yards in a season and over 300 carries. He's had over 300 carries in 3 of 5 seasons. In the 2 seasons where he didn't have 300 carries are the only 2 seasons where he didn't have almost 1,000-yard back in all 5 of his seasons. In the seasons where he's carried 300 times, he's made it to 1,631, 1,434. Did not have those 300 yards. He had 242 for 983. He's had no less than 6 touchdowns in every one of his seasons, and he's had at least 52 receptions in each of his last 3 seasons, and he's had at least 2 touchdowns receiving in each of his last 3 seasons. So this is somebody who consistently is getting it done. With or without Dak, whatever people think about his numbers, consistency throughout the year, he is giving you the yardage. He's averaging, he's putting himself in a situation to average over 1,000 yards a season and to average around 240 to 300 carries a season. So around 260. And he can catch the ball out of the backfield. Ezekiel Elliott is a threat. He is a first-round draftable running back, and he is somebody that you should really look to. Tony Pollard is a flex guy. He's below some of the flexes that we've talked about, but he is a flex guy, and he is there if need be. And God forbid anything happen, he is a serviceable back who I think can do some things to help out the offense. But Ezekiel Elliott, by the numbers, I think when I really give them to you, I think some people will be like, oh, wow, Dan, I didn't know he was almost at 1,000 this past season. I didn't know he caught that many balls out of the backfield. I didn't know he was averaging over 1,000 yards a season. So, I think Ezekiel Elliott's worst is 2 times what you're going to get from somebody else. So I think Ezekiel Elliott, who he will get drafted high. Listen, Cowboy fans are going to draft him high. People that respect what he's done, or they're going to draft him high. I think he will be drafted high, not in front of some of the other guys, but in going in the first round, if there's 10 picks, I can definitely see it. And there's nothing wrong with drafting Ezekiel Elliott. His numbers have shocked me to take a look at them and say, wow, they are higher than I expected them to be. So there is a lot of good to get from drafting Ezekiel Elliott, and Tony Pollard is a lower flex right now in his current situation. From here, we will head off to the New York Giants and take a look at the return and the reemergence of Saquon Barkley. We have missed this man. An ACL and an MCL have taken him out and really killed some people's fantasy seasons and hit me in some kind of way. Devontae Booker is on the team now. Here's a guy that was claimed off waivers. Every time I say here's a guy, I think about myself as John Madden. But here's a guy. But Raekwon Armstead is on the team now, and this breaks my heart. I thought Raekwon Armstead, a guy covered out of Temple, was going to make some hay in Jacksonville. But James Robinson took that over while Raekwon was going through COVID and injury and illness, whatever. And so, James Robinson took over, and then they drafted Travis Etienne Jr., So this is where he is. Corey Clement, who made his hay in catching out of the backfield and being kind of a serviceable guy out of Wisconsin for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's now stayed in division, and he's with the Giants. So, Armstead, Clement, and Booker all can try and find their way in here. But Saquon Barkley is trying to be your fantasy stud again. Mike, where does Saquon live in this world as he tries to make a reemergence in the NFL after being injured very early in his career?
Yeah, this is a tough situation. As we said before, your best ability is availability. And, Barkley's been hurt a couple times, and he's hurt me as well in dynasty leagues as well. I was all in on him. And now we're in a position where, Dave Gettleman is like, I don't even know if we're going to, pick up his fifth-year option. A lot's going to depend on his health and how this year goes for him. So he could be potentially in a contract year if you want to look at it that way. Devontae Booker is basically the poor man Saquon Barkley. They're within 4 pounds of each other. They're the same height. Gettleman likes Devontae Booker. My take on Devontae Booker is if he could have, he would have already. So if he could have done it, he would have already. He could have done it in Denver. He didn't. He could have done it with the Raiders. He didn't. Now he's in a prime position because we don't know how the health of Saquon is. Saquon says he's back and he's all right. There's another name to look out for, Elijah Penny, big name prospect from a couple of years ago. But I think it's all Saquon Barkley. If he's healthy, he's the guy. Devontae Booker's going to be there for spot duty. But if I'm going to take Saquon Barkley, I'm probably going to try to get Devontae Booker, but I'm not going to overpay for him either. Saquon Barkley, I'm looking for him to step up to that pressure. I'm looking for him to step up and prove he's worthy of that fifth-year option. I've got him ranked number 4 as a running back, number 4 overall. I've seen him as high as 3 and as low as 10, so he's definitely an RB1 for you. But protect yourself. Grab a Devontae Booker because, if the GM on that team likes him, and something happens, there's a chance this guy's going to get a lot of touches. And the Giants are a team that I'm looking for to take a next step. They're looking to move up a little bit in their offensive prowess. I think the addition of Kenny Golladay does wonders. Is Daniel Jones really the guy? He better be the guy because they only got Mike Glennon behind him. So a lot's on Saquon. They're not going to come out and say that, but the pressure's on Saquon, and I think he's going to respond positively. I think it's going to be a great situation. He's a top 5 running back in the league.
Yeah, staying healthy. I mean, Saquon, the first 2 seasons, over 1,000 yards. 1,307 as a rookie, 1,003 as a sophomore, 11 touchdowns in his first season, rushing 6 in his second season. He did catch some balls out of the backfield as well. He had 91 receptions as a rookie, 52 in his second season, 4 touchdowns in his first season, 2 in his second, receiving the ball. So, he's someone that some people may be a little bit nervous about taking. Some people might take him number 2. Some people might take him in the top 3, top 4, top 5. I think he is a top 5, and I think you do need to take him. I wouldn't take him number 1 overall, but you got a top 5 pick in your draft, probably going for Saquon Barkley, and that's okay. Devontae Booker's numbers, best season was his first season, 612 yards. After that for Denver, 299, 183. Then he played in 16 games for Denver in 2019. He had 9 yards. He rushed the ball twice in 16 games. He was just out there, but not utilized. And then for the Raiders, he played in 16 games, started in one of them, had 93 carries for 423 yards, and he had 3 touchdowns on the season. His multiple touchdown seasons are his first season in 2016-17 with 4, and last season with 3 as far as rushing the ball. This man is good when it comes to serviceability because he's played in 16 games in 4 of his 5 seasons and played in 13 games in the other season. So, health is obviously something that he has had, but he's only started 7 games out of 77 games played. He didn't start a single game for Denver in 2017, 18, and 19 seasons. He started 1 last year, like I said, and 6 as a rookie. Devontae Booker, I agree with Mike. If he would have done it, he would have done it already. Listen, if something, God forbid, happens to Saquon, which I hope it doesn't, if something does happen, look to Raquel, look to Corey Clement. Devontae Booker could be ousted really quickly. But if Saquon stays healthy, he's a top 5 guy. Next one that we have here, Mike, Philadelphia, Corey Clement's old team. Philly's been making some changes, some makeovers. They made a change to their head coach, and now they've been moving things around. Listen, they got Kenneth Gainwell, who they're bringing in. They got Jordan Howard, who they brought in last year from Chicago. They got Kerryon Johnson, who they just brought in from Detroit, who's a really young back. Adrian Killens Jr., the speedster from UCF, is there. Boston Scott's still there. And if he's healthy, again, another Penn State guy that needs to stay healthy. When Saquon left Penn State, who became the number one? Miles Sanders. Who are the two guys that have been injured, frustrating the heck out of you? Saquon Barkley and Miles Sanders. Well, Sanders is still the number one guy in Philadelphia, but they got weapons all over the place. They got guys trying to make this team, and Kerryon Johnson and Gainwell and Howard and Killens. There's a lot of guys that are trying to be the third and fourth string back and maybe try and oust Boston Scott as the two behind Miles Sanders. What are your thoughts about Philly?
Yeah, I had a lot invested in Sanders as well. This is a guy who, like you said, followed in the footsteps of Barkley in more ways than one, both in college and pros. I like Boston Scott, the kid out of LA Tech. I think this is a guy who off the practice squad, and he was on my radar forever, on my practice squads and dynasty leagues. This is a guy who I was able to swoop up for cheap off waivers at times during the year, and when he had to step up, he did. They got a guy that I want you to look out for in Kenneth Gainwell, though, 5th round pick out of Memphis, and Memphis has kind of proved itself to produce NFL caliber running backs. Darrell Henderson, Tony Pollard, Antonio Gibson. All these guys can catch the ball out of the backfield too, and that's what Kenneth Gainwell can do. So Boston Scott's in jeopardy, and Miles Sanders is in jeopardy as well. I think that they're poising like they're trying to build the team with him as one of the centerpieces, Miles Sanders. But at the same time, you got to wonder, Jalen Hurts at quarterback, how's that going to affect Miles Sanders? Coming back from an injury, how's that going to affect Miles Sanders? So there's a lot of unanswered questions. They did bring in Kerryon Johnson. They did bring in Jordan Howard, Elijah Holyfield, yes, Evander Holyfield's son out of Georgia, and Adrian Killens, like you pointed out, the speedster out of UCF. So they have some talent there. So whoever is on the field definitely earned their position. But I look for it to be Miles Sanders. I look for Boston Scott to be that third down guy, but I look for Kenneth Gainwell to make his way on the field. I have Miles Sanders ranked a little lower than most people do, but looking around recently, I've seen most people were more so leaning toward my ranking in the high teens. I've got him at 19. I've seen him as high as 15 and as low as 29. So this is a guy who it's a coin flip almost. You got to wonder what's going to happen. There's a lot of variables, a lot of moving parts around him, but I think I would be content with drafting him as a low-end RB2, high-end RB3. I for sure, if I had a late-round pick and it was a keeper or dynasty, I would make sure I got Kenneth Gainwell.
Yeah, Mike, I'll give my thoughts on this in a second. I want to take a step aside from it. Green Bay Packers reporting this morning, Aaron Rodgers wasn't the only player that was not at OTAs, known as organized team activities. He wasn't the only player missing. The top 5 receivers from Green Bay were missing as well. Devontae Adams, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Alan Lazard, Devin Funchess, and Equanimeous St. Brown. It looks like maybe a move of solidarity amongst the wide receivers that until their quarterback is figured out, they are not going to be there. Thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's a lot about nothing. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to end up, being the quarterback in Green Bay. I don't see, politically and verbally and what the talking heads are saying, are another thing. But I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. I think the OTAs, there's been some mixed reactions about OTAs in the last couple of years, and a lot of veteran players do sit out the voluntary stuff. And now with the excuse of COVID, and I say the excuse of COVID because it seems to be winding down. Everybody seems to be overcome from the pandemic, and it looks like that, we're moving on. The NFL is talking about having full stadiums this year. So I think the players at a certain time, they're like, no, I'm not going to do the voluntary OTA. That's why it's voluntary. But I'll tell you what, if I was an NFL player and I wasn't a premium commodity like Aaron Rodgers, my butt would be there every day because it's next man up. There's a lot of guys who want your position. There's a lot of guys who want your lifestyle. You worked your entire life to be at this point, and now you're going to sit out because you can. No, I got a problem with that. You need to show up. You need to be part of your team. But it is what it is. You can't change culture. You can't change what guys think. You can't change what their agents think. And it is a business. And maybe it's a better business decision for these guys not to be at the OTAs and not risk injury, which we've seen it before. These contracts aren't guaranteed. There's more guaranteed money in them. Baseball contracts are guaranteed. That's why, the injuries are so much more catastrophic for an NFL player. You could be done. Your career can be over with one snap of a twig. So I can see their point, but those names you named as far as receivers, the only guy that has any right to sit out an OTA is Devontae Adams with Aaron Rodgers. Those other guys all need to be there.
Yeah, and they need to get the work in, and they need to figure these things out. Hopefully they will. Mike, like you said, OTAs, it seems like, players have kind of had their thoughts about it, had their opinions about it, and, maybe don't want to do them anymore. So, some do, some don't. It depends. And so I think, ultimately I do think, if somebody not showing up at OTAs doesn't really surprise me as much as maybe it would surprise a few years back. But they need to get this figured out. They need to get it done. They need to make right by what they need to make right by. And, that doesn't mean to, support a diva. But, if Aaron Rodgers has some real claims and some real demands and some real thoughts, they need to think about him. Listen, this is your guy. Without him, who are you? So, he has a point in some of the statements he can make. They have a point in some of the statements they can make. And, like anything, you have to compromise. So hopefully they will get it done. The Eagles, Miles Sanders, taking a look at his numbers last season, 867 yards. He had the most carries on the team by doubling Boston Scott and then some. Boston Scott had 80. Miles Sanders had 164. And 5.3 yards a carry. Boston Scott, 4.7 yards a carry. Looking at this, 6 touchdowns rushing for Miles Sanders, 1 for Boston Scott, 374 yards for Boston Scott. And Scott played in all 16 games. Sanders played in 12. Notable here, Jordan Howard, who they brought over from Chicago, only played in 2 games and only had 7 attempts the entire season and no touchdowns. So Kenneth Gainwell could take over and really push Jordan Howard deeper down the depth chart. Say that 10 times fast. But looking at Kenneth Gainwell, 231. When he became the starter last year, he had in 2019, he had 231 attempts, 1,459 yards, 6.3 yards a carry, 13 rushing touchdowns, and 3 touchdowns receiving to go with 610 receiving yards. That means he had over 2,000 yards all-purpose in his final season that he played at Memphis. Kenneth Gainwell, in my opinion, as a pass-catching back and as a back who can bruise you inside, and as coming out of Memphis with so many guys, as Mike mentioned, coming out of Memphis, it's like every single year they're sending somebody to the NFL. Basically, the third-string guy is going to eventually take the first string and eventually go to the NFL. The first-string guy goes to the NFL, then the second-string guy comes over, goes to the NFL, then the third-string guy comes over, goes to the NFL, and they go and recruit, and they bring other guys. I mean, this is becoming a workable commodity that the NFL trusts Memphis. And this is not just under, Mike Norvell. This was under Norvell, and now it's under, Silverfield. And, there's Justin Fuente. There's different coaches that have come in, and Memphis has consistently, churned out these NFL-talented running backs. So I do think that Kenneth Gainwell is a nice sleeper for you because a lot of people ain't going to know his name. So he going to sleep all the way to the end, and you're going to pick him up, and you might be the wake-up call for your league. So make sure that you do that. Boston Scott is going to get some touches. He's not a bad flyer toward the end, 12th round, something like that. Miles Sanders still a starter, still a guy for you to take, but he's a number 2 running back in my opinion. So you take Miles Sanders, you wait on Boston Scott later, and you pick up Kenneth Gainwell and really surprise a lot of people who might chuckle, giggle, and laugh at you. But that's what usually happens when you're ahead of the ball game, is people laugh and then beg you to trade. So make sure that you get smart on your decision-making, and that's what Mike and I are here for. I'm not writing football team, Mike, so I'm writing WFL or WFT, because I just don't I don't feel like doing it. I'm just upset about it. So, Washington's, whatever the heck their name is going to be someday, this is what their situation looks like in their backfield. I can't believe they've gone over a year without naming their team. Anyway, and then they put out to the fans, here's the 97 names that we're considering, and they're still the Washington football team. What was the point of that? What is the gimmick of this anymore? I don't get it. But Antonio Gibson, speaking of guys coming out of Memphis, he is the dominant starter now. Adrian Peterson's not there anymore. J.D. McKissick, who came over from Seattle, he's there. Peyton Barber, who used to have some time with the Tampa Bay Bucks, is there. Lamar Miller, believe it or not, is still chugging away, playing for the Texans, playing for the Dolphins, and now he is on this team. What are your thoughts on Washington's blankety blank 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 backfield situation?
I think they're in a great situation. They brought in J.D. McKissick last year, and he wasn't supposed to be the guy who was going to have an impact. He was supposed to be like a practice squad guy, maybe the fourth on the depth chart, and he had to step up late in the season, and he was a pass-catching guy for them before that point, too. Antonio Gibson can catch the ball, but Antonio Gibson doesn't have the mileage that a lot of backs have coming out of college, and he didn't put on a lot of mileage last year. I got him primed with tremendous upside this year. I really like him a lot as a high-end RB2. There may be one guy in your draft that's going to like him and draft him as an RB1. I think that's a bit foolish with the talent that they have around them. J.D. McKissick got hurt last year, and I don't mean physically hurt because Antonio Gibson got physically hurt, but J.D. McKissick got hurt this year because they brought in Curtis Samuel. J.D. McKissick's value was as a receiver. Now they can count on that they're lining up as well for Antonio Gibson. The defense on Washington is stellar. They can get the ball back. They can pressure the quarterback. They can get you out of a bad situation. I think that bodes well for Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think that bodes well for Antonio Gibson. J.D. McKissick is a guy to look at, though, but don't get overexcited with J.D. McKissick. Understand, in a redraft situation, you're going to get maybe flex production out of him. Pleasant production a couple weeks if he gets 6 or 7 pass receptions. But I think a lot of that's going to be spoken for by Curtis Samuel, like I said. I like Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson, I have him ranked number 14 on the rankings. The other guys are just, also rans at this point, barring an injury. I don't see anybody else on the roster having an impact. I like Antonio Gibson's upside.
Yeah, man. Listen. I think, Antonio Gibson is a rookie last year. He played in 14 games. He started in 10 of them. He had 170 carries for 795 yards. Guess what, folks? As a rookie, any rookie that does this, that posts double-digit touchdowns, is notable. He had 11 touchdowns last year as a rookie, rushing the ball. He also had 247 yards receiving. When you put those numbers together with his rushing yards, he had over 1,000 all-purpose yards, 11 touchdowns, 4.7 yards per carry, playing in 14 games, starting in 10. That should tell you a lot of great things about Antonio Gibson. People will pass on him because people may still not know who he is. They may not be paying attention to Washington. They may think Washington is all a mixed bag of crazy because it has been for so long. But Antonio Gibson's 11 touchdowns, 795 yards, and over 1,000 all-purpose yards is a very notable thing to look at. J.D. McKissick last year played in all 16 games, had 85 carries for 365 yards, 4.3 yards a carry, right behind Gibson's 4.7, and he only had 1 rushing touchdown. Through the air, McKissick had 589 yards. He was third on the team. He was the top running back in receiving yards and the top running back in targets. He was the second in targets, tied with Logan Thomas, the tight end, and only behind Terry McLaurin that had 134 targets. He caught the second most balls, 80 to McLaurin's 87, and he had 2 touchdowns. So you're looking at 80 receptions, over 550 yards, targeted 110 times. Catching the ball out of the backfield, that's something to look at as a flex guy that you could pick up late in the draft, another guy that people will pass on and not think about. So J.D. McKissick, not a bad play for you as a true flex running back, but Antonio Gibson, as somebody who's a running back that's only spent a season in the NFL and he's got a ton of upside, he is definitely worth. I'm very excited about the opportunity to put him onto my team. So there's something to be said about that as we move forward here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, which is exactly what we're going to do before we go to the NFC West and round out all of the backfields of the NFC, all 16 teams in one episode of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora here inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. We're going to take a step aside for a fast break and want to thank the Wildcat and let you know that you can dine inside or outside at the Wildcats on 3680 Milton Avenue 7 days a week. And, of course, you can find your way to them through takeout and delivery by calling 315-487-2222. 315-487-2222. So make sure you do that today. From inside the Cafe Kubal Studios, Mike and I will take our fast break, and we will come back with the final portion of this jam-packed Fantasy Football Power Hour bonanza presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, giving you our thoughts, our predictions, and what you need to know fantasy-wise for every backfield of the NFC. 16 teams in one big-time, prime-time episode. We're happy to be here with you, and we will speak with you about the NFC West as we cover the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Niners, and, of course, the Rams right after this fast break where sports meets that thing called life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if they don't shop at Honda City.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. He kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily, and we bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have at any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, where sports meets that thing called life. You're listening to internet streaming radio on both of those. You're also watching and listening on internet streaming video worldwide on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, shared on facebook.com/livenowdt, and on youtube.com/Wake Up Call DT. So however you're connecting with the show, welcome to the broadcast inside of the Cafe Kubal studios where sports meets that thing called life. Cafe Kubal available to you at 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 208 North Townsend Street, and 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, as well as inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital. And, of course, you can find them at 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. So fill your cup up today with your favorite. I get the chais, all different types of chais, the mint one, the pumpkin spice, the maple. I get all the chais that they have there. Really just love how they all make it in-house, the spices and the syrups. And, of course, you can get their homemade coffee as well, made right here in our community. And beautiful story from Matt Goddard, the owner and operator, that he was brewing coffee in his parents' basement. And he just built everything out of there to now have all of these locations, another one on its way in June. I'm completely honored to work with a place that has been so strong and so fruitful and so positive and working so diligently through a pandemic to expand. I mean, how many people come out of a pandemic expanding their business? So a shout out to Cafe Kubal for that. We are inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, not one of and not a, but the one for you to be watching every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Today, Mike and I had a full show takeover because we wanted to get to every NFC Teams backfield, and we are doing exactly that today. We have one more to go to, and that is the NFC West. We'll start things with the Arizona Cardinals, and we'll move through there to the Rams, the Niners, and the Seahawks right here where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So with that being said, the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, times 2 today with a full 2-hour broadcast taking over Wake Up Call to bring you our advice on the NFC and all of the backfields within it. All 16 teams. Mike has brought us to the NFC West, and the first location that we will land in to give advice is the Arizona Cardinals. So your thoughts on Arizona with Chase Edmonds, James Conner. Remember how Chase Edmonds was that guy that you didn't know if you picked up, or did you pick him up, not pick him up? Do you put him on your team? Do you flex him? Do you play him? Chase Edmonds now with Kenyon Drake gone has moved up, and James Conner has moved in. What are your thoughts on Arizona?
Yeah, I like Chase Edmonds. I mean, the product out of Fordham from 2018 draft, I liked them ever since I saw him. They did bring in James Conner, but they let go of Kenyon Drake, who was the guy who really took the front seat for a while there in Arizona. I think Chase Edmonds is capable of catching the ball. He had 53 receptions last year. The important thing with the James Conner move is there's a reason why Pittsburgh let him go. Now, both of these guys are kind of similar, small school guys. James Conner, Pittsburgh, and Chase Edmonds, Fordham. They're close in size. Well, Connor's got him 3 inches and 20 pounds or so. But I think Connor's more used up, if you want to say that, than Edmonds. I think Edmonds has more upside, and I think the organization views Edmonds as their feature back. Don't make any mistake here, though. This is a passing team. This is a high potent offense, though, so the running back is in play, especially if you can catch the ball. But bringing in DeAndre Hopkins last year, now A.J. Green, Andy Isabella is in the slot right now, but I look for Rondell Moore to take over that spot. Christian Kirk might be an afterthought. There's really no other running backs of mention after Chase Edmonds and James Conner. So if you can see Chase Edmonds for his upside, understand that he's probably an RB3 and draft him as such. Same thing with James Conner. It's going to be somewhat of a committee, but I think that Edmonds is going to get the lion's share of those looks on passing downs as well. So I really feel good about Chase Edmonds. But again, as an RB3 on my team, I've got him ranked as number 32. I see guys have him as ranked as high as 24 for James Conner. And then Edmonds, I see people, same thing, 24 to 41. So I think there's an opportunity for Edmonds at 31 and Conner 32 to totally cannibalize each other and make this whole discussion moot. But at the same time, if I had to pick one of the two, I would pick Edmonds for the upside.
Taking a look at this situation, Chase Edmonds, to go and look at his numbers, I mean, he's been in Arizona for 3 years. He played in 16 games for 2 out of those 3 years, including last season, played in 13 in his middle season of 2019-20. He's had 60 rushing attempts his first 2 seasons, had 208 yards, and then doubled that on as many attempts. Think about that. He had 60 attempts for 208 yards as a rookie, and then 60 attempts for 303 yards the next season. So he pretty much doubled, or not doubled, added 100 yards to it. Took that output of, took the opportunities and added another 100 yards from 200 to 300. Doubled his touchdowns from 2 to 4 rushing in those years. And then last year had 448 yards, had 97 rushing attempts, had 1 touchdown. He's averaged 3.5 yards a carry, 5.1, and 4.6, last season. He was targeted at least 12 times in each of the last 3 years receiving, but 53 times last year. 402 yards receiving on 53 receptions. That gives him last season over 800 yards, closer to 900. I think it's 850 all-purpose yards, and he had 4 touchdowns receiving. So you got 850 all-purpose yards. You got 5 touchdowns overall. You played in all 16 games. That bodes well for Chase Edmonds catching the ball out of the backfield. Now, like Mike said, they added other receivers. They brought in A.J. Green, trying to figure out what's going to go on with the rest of the guys on the team that they have brought in and that they've drafted. What are they going to do with Christian Kirk, and so on and so forth. But, DeAndre Hopkins is obviously their number one. And as they look forward here with Chase Edmonds, he is very serviceable in a PPR league. Now, James Conner, on the other side of it, this is where I get pissed off. James Conner didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything to deserve anything. Because we look back at 2018, he went to the Pro Bowl. Now, in 2018, he started in 12 of the 13 games he played in. He had 973 yards, 12 rushing touchdowns, had a passing touchdown as well. Receiving touchdown, I should say, 497 yards receiving. Then in 2019-20, started in 10 games, played in those 10 games that started in all of them, 464 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns, and he had 3 touchdowns receiving. Last season, started in 11 games, played in 13, had 721 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns to go with 215 yards receiving. This man has put together statistics that I think are strong enough and good enough to, make mention of. He's averaging 4.3 yards per carry. So that's something that we have to look at here. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can rush between the tackles. And he filled in when Le'Veon Bell left the team and everybody thought the team was going to maybe blow up. James Conner is young in the game. He's done a lot. He has saved fantasy weeks for me. So I think him and Edmonds are kind of toe-to-toe here right now, and who's going to take it? Now, Edmonds has the experience with Arizona, so he may start out being the starter, but James Conner is a very cheap way to boost your team. I think both of these guys can have fantasy value. I think both of these guys can be flex guys for you, which Mike said, running back 3, so that makes sense. And I think that either one of them is worth drafting. So if somebody gets one, don't cry about it, and you can go and get the other one. I feel like James Conner's starting his career, not ending it. And I think that people should give him credit where credit's due because, with all due respect, Chase Edmonds has been in the league longer, and he's starting his career. Well, he's been in the league around the same amount of time because I think it's one less season than James Conner. But both of these guys are, coming out of a rookie contract, essentially. So I don't see how either one of them doesn't find value as a flex guy on your team. You could do a heck of a lot, to me, Chase Edmonds is going to carry value, and James Conner is going to as well. I think either one of them on any other team could carry value. And if I think they could carry value receiving and rushing on any team, then I think that they're worth a play for you at a flex. And I think there's a lot of players that go above. Next one that we have here, Mike, the LA Rams. Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson. They've decided that these are the guys. Darrell Henderson stepping into, I believe, his 3rd season coming out of Memphis. They let Malcolm Brown go to Miami. And so with that being stated, Darrell Henderson Jr. is now, they're trusting in him. And they're trusting in Cam Akers, who they made number 3, and then he became number 1 last year as a rookie, but then he got hurt. They drafted Jake Funk out of Maryland. They did that low, though. What are your thoughts on the Florida State-Memphis tandem here that we have with Akers and Henderson respectively? And by the way, connecting them both, even though Cam didn't have this guy as his coach, Florida State and Memphis, both are connected to Mike Norvell. So in a weird way, they weren't teammates under the same coach, but now the coach has been in both places, and now they're teammates, and were teammates last year. So where does the Akers-Henderson thing go, and does Jake Funk or anybody else have any value?
I think the biggest thing for Cam Akers is the improvement at quarterback. And that's right, I said it. Matt Stafford is an upgrade over Jared Goff. And I think if you don't know that by now, you better start listening to us more. But Cam Akers is a guy. He's a top 10 running back. Out of Florida State, he caught a lot of passes. But last year at in L.A., he didn't catch a lot of passes. But that was the offense there. The Rams were number 30 in the NFL with only 50 running back receptions. But that's okay because they have a lot of great receivers. Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Robert Woods. This is a trifecta of receivers that we're going to see explode this year. And Cam Akers is going to be on the field for more of those passing downs. I don't think Darrell Henderson is going to take much away from him. And I felt good about my ranking on Cam Akers because after I do my rankings and projections, I look around to 10, 12 other people who I kind of look at what they do sometimes and where they have. See where my guys are stacking up against their guys. And sure enough, everybody's got him outside of one or two people. Everybody's got him in that 10-11 spot. So I feel good about him being an RB1 for you, bottom end RB1, PPR standard, it doesn't matter. I like the upside of Cam Akers. I think he's ready to explode. I think Darrell Henderson is worthy of a roster spot for you, but I got him ranked number 46 on my rankings, and most of the other people agree he's in the 40s. So I think it's Cam Akers' show. I think he's going to be a 3-down back. I think he's going to surprise some people. Don't forget about Darrell Henderson, but this is Cam Akers' team.
It's interesting when you look at the numbers, because Henderson played in 15 games, Akers played in 13. But when you look at the numbers, break it all down, Akers had 145 attempts, Darrell Henderson had 138 attempts. And guess what their difference was? Of having 7 attempts difference between the two of them, Akers having 7 more, at the end of the season, they were separated in rushing yards by 1 yard. Cam Akers, 625, Henderson, 624. Cam Akers, 4.3 yards a carry, Henderson, 4.5. 5 rushing touchdowns for Henderson, 2 for Cam Akers. Now, receiving the ball, taking a look at them, Darrell Henderson had 159 yards receiving, targeted 24 times, and had a touchdown. Akers was targeted 14 times, so 10 less than Henderson, had 123 yards receiving, and had 1 touchdown. So both of these guys not utilized a lot, as Mike said, looking at their receiving core, with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. They brought in Deshaun Jackson, who's still playing, God bless him. Van Jefferson is there. Tutu Atwell, who comes from Louisville, is on the team. Tristan Jackson, my guy from Syracuse that came through Michigan State, who spent 1 season with the Orange, got 1 season and sat out a season, but was able to play in the Camping World Bowl. So he played like a season and a bowl game, but separate. So there is a lot of talent there, so you don't expect your running backs to be receiving backs. You expect them to run the ball. And I think they are really even. I think this is a team where you could benefit from having either one of the guys. They could, kind of eat each other a little bit. But I do think that this is a rising and growing thing. With Malcolm Brown not there and Akers and Henderson kind of, I think, knowing this is our team, this is our time, and we can be the guys, then, I think there can be positivity here. I think that Akers and Henderson they're obviously not your 1. Being your 2, it depends. I think there's better options out there. I would lean maybe a little bit more on Akers than Henderson, but Henderson has the output, and he's right there with Akers. I want people to know it's 1 yard of separation. It's better yards per carry for Henderson. It's better rushing touchdowns for Henderson. So, before people write him off for Cam Akers, I think that there's value in both. And I think they're figuring things out, but I think they'll both complement each other in the backfield. Sometimes that'll be frustrating, and sometimes that'll be good. But the two of them together getting over 600 yards and at least 138 attempts apiece, that's good, and it bodes well for the future. So I think there's value here as opposed to other teams that have maybe a couple guys, but I don't really feel like it's going to pan out. I think both of these guys could bring something to your team, just not as your number 1 running back, and maybe arguably not your number 2, maybe a lower end 2, a higher end 3. Next up on the list, the San Francisco 49ers, speaking of guys that don't know what the heck they're doing in the backfield. Wayne Gallman is there now, who spent time out of Clemson, went off to the Giants. He's there now. Jeff Wilson had a meniscus, and he's expected to return in Week 4. He did some good things as a non-household name. Raheem Mostert, he's been injured, but he's still there. Matt Breida hasn't been there for a couple seasons, but they tried him out. Jerick McKinnon's not there anymore after he got injured. And they went and got Trey Sermon from Ohio State and put him on the team as a rookie. Where is San Fran in the backfield, Mike?
You know, there's a fish that they use in Japanese restaurants, Japanese eating is sushi. It's called fugu. And this fish is more poisonous than cyanide. It's a Japanese delicacy. It's kind of like a blowfish. It's so poisonous that the smallest mistake in its preparation could be fatal. That's what we have here in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Be careful what you pick here. Now, there's a couple guys that I'm going to surprise you with that you're going to say, no, stop, Mike. You're crazy. This is what they said about Raheem Mostert. Now, due to injury last year, he kind of stumbled a little bit for about 6 weeks, but this is a committee situation. The bad news for Mostert this year is the coach really likes another guy on the team, a guy they drafted in the 3rd round in Trey Sermon, and I think that's a worthy pick, and I think that's the guy with the upside. I think these picks are going to cannibalize each other. Jermichael Hasty stepped in nicely late last year. They picked another running back. We've talked about this principle before. I've talked about it like if you need a tight end, do what Baltimore did a couple of years ago. They took Hayden Hurst first, and they backed that up with Mark Andrews. Hayden Hurst didn't work out. He's gone. Mark Andrews is the guy. If you're getting water, take a sip of water now, but take some water with you. Double down while you're there. And that's what they did with Elijah Mitchell, who has an opportunity to make the team as well. And don't forget about Jeff Wilson, who's had his opportunity to shine. So this could be a bad situation. The wrong move by you could be critical on your year. This is going to be a situation I'm going to closely monitor, and the rankings will change on this to some extent. I'm not saying the order, but the numbers may change. I've got Raheem Mostert ranked at 35. A lot of people have him in the 20s. I've got Trey Sermon at 39. Most people have him in the 40s. Wayne Gallman. They brought Wayne Gallman in. I don't think he's a threat to anybody. He's an emergency flex guy. I like the upside of most of these backs. They're young. They're a committee situation. And don't forget, we have a question at quarterback on this team. Is Garoppolo going to be the guy? Is he going to be on a roster week 1? Are they going to start out 0-2 and then Trey Lance is going to take over? So there's a lot of questions, a lot of moving parts here. I do like these guys, but as usual, go with the rankings and don't expect too much from your guys. Know that they're projected to do this. This is probably what's going to happen. And anything above that is gravy. And anything below that's probably due to injury only. I like these guys as maybe RB3s, RB4s, maybe flexes. Lead with Mostert. But if you're in a dynasty or a keeper league, I like the upside of Trey Sermon.
Yeah, and I figured you were going to say that. I mean, and put up Mostert and Sermon here on our list. Raheem Mostert has done some good things. I mean, you like him, Mike. I mean, you've spoken highly of him in the past. And, I think you were really on him when he was not a household name and really not even in the mix. So, Raheem last year, 521 yards on 104 carries. He only played in 8 games and still had 100 carries. So he played in half the season, had over 100 carries, 5 yards a carry, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns. Receiving the ball, Raheem Mostert had 156 yards, 19 targets, 16 receptions, and he had a touchdown. So Raheem looks like he could be the guy, but there's obviously going to be somebody that's going to help him. Hence why they picked up Trey Sermon. So I do believe that this is a committee. I do think this is going to have to be a 1-2 punch. I don't see Raheem Mostert as being the every down, every play, every target guy. Trey Sermon, who went from Oklahoma to Ohio State, he had 744, 947, 385, and 870 in rushing yards from his freshman season to his senior season. 5 touchdowns, 13, 4, and 4. And as far as receiving yards, he's had 139, 181, 71, and 95. So he's not an every down guy. He's not wow you, oh my gosh, these numbers are insane. But neither is Raheem. So I think they complement each other, and so I think that you'll need them both. So if you get Mostert early on in your draft as a low-end 2, high-end 3, and you get Sermon at the end, I think this handcuff could actually bode better for you than some other situations out there. So I would consider taking it and taking a look at it, especially if you miss out on some of the other guys that we talked about here this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Make sure you head out there for indoor and outdoor dining 7 days a week. Once again, at 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus in the Home Depot Plaza. And you can get takeout and delivery by calling 315-487-2222. With that being said, Mike, our final team of 32, we did 16 today, we did the AFC last week. Our final team to discuss in their backfield are the Seattle Seahawks, who have Chris Carson, and oh my gosh, he's still there, Rashad Penny. How did Rashad Penny come all the way back to number 2? They have Alex Collins, who did some good things in Baltimore, but now he's here. They have DJ Davis, who's trying to find a home there. Travis Homer trying to find a home there as well, coming from Miami, where I covered him with the Hurricanes. They have a lot of they got the same names. They got 5 guys trying to get it done. Chris Carson seems to be the most serviceable and the most electric, but he hasn't stayed healthy. Penny, I got to imagine that they're, not going to stay with him. They dropped his 5th-year option, which I anticipated. So what are your thoughts on the situation in Seattle?
Yeah, the funny thing is I'm a buyer on Rashad Penny. I'm a buyer because, Chris Carson's getting up there and he is injury prone. I like Carson. I think he's the best running back on the roster. I've got him ranked number 16. So he's a solid RB2. I've seen him as high as 10 and as low as 22. I think he's the guy that can be the 3-down back. But, injuries have hurt him and set him back. But every time you turn around, he's the best running back on the team. Not bad for the 249th pick, 7th round in 17 out of Oklahoma State. Now, Rashad Penny came in. He was supposed to be the guy back in 18. Drafted him first round, 27th pick. You look at last year, he barely played in 3 games, and he really didn't have a role due to injury. I consider him to be a guy that has tremendous upside, especially if there's an injury to Chris Carson. The problem in Seattle is they have Homer in Dallas. They have Travis Homer and DJ Dallas, both cats out of Miami, both Hurricanes. These guys are capable of coming in and stepping up. You got Russell Wilson, who likes to cook with that running back. They got Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. They've just bring in Dwayne Eskridge. He's going to start in the slot. I think this is a deep offensive team. I think you're going to get muddled a little bit. I think the guy that you want to have, if you have to pick one, it's Chris Carson. But I'll tell you what, in the late rounds, just before my kicker and just before my defense, I'm not afraid to take a Rashad Penny, a Travis Homer, or DJ Dallas and take a gamble on one of those guys. But I would do it in that order. Rashad Penny, I think he has tremendous upside this year. You can't count on it, but I think he's got a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah, I think Chris Carson, definitely he's somebody that you don't want to pass on. He's somebody you want to, give a chance to and give some hope to in the grand scheme of things here. He's got to stay healthy. That's the issue, is he's got to stay healthy. And Rashad Penny, it's interesting, Mike, to hear that you're sold on him, that you would buy because he's been kind of all over the place. Last year, he only played in 3 games. He had 34 yards. Chris Carson, 681 on 141 attempts, played in 12 games, had 5 rushing touchdowns. Chris Carson, 287 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns, so just shy of 10 all-purpose touchdowns for Chris Carson. He's definitely the guy. And, DJ Davis has gotten involved. Travis Homer's gotten involved. Really, in all honesty, when you look at, this team and you look at DJ Davis and Travis Homer and Alex Collins, these are all, oh my gosh, I need somebody, my team's all on bye, or I got a bunch of injuries, or I wasn't anticipating this to happen. That's when you pick up these guys. Rashad Penny, I'd leave him off my team, but he could be a guy to take later on, 15th round, 16th round, something like that. Chris Carson's definitely worth taking. He's not your number 1 guy, but he is a dangerous player when healthy, and he does put together numbers, and I would prefer to not play against him. So that's how I look at it. With that being said, Mike, we have covered the entire NFC Backfield, all 16 teams here on the show. Any final notes before we bid you adieu for the week?
Yeah, just be cautious on running backs. Don't get oversold. Don't sell too much. But if you have a top 6 pick, you're definitely going running back this year. For up-to-date rankings, check back on the website frequently. I'll also post them in the group Winning Fantasy Football on Facebook. You can catch videos, of course, on YouTube, and you can catch us right here every Wednesday, which I'm very happy about. And I look forward to having a great season. But these rankings will change. I promise you that. I look forward to having a highly productive year. Go along for the ride with me. Fantasy football's a lot more fun when you win, and that's what I guarantee at my site. So check us out at HallOfFameFantasyFootball.com. Check out the Facebook group, Winning Fantasy Football.
Yeah, definitely check us out. Winning Fantasy Football, the Facebook group, and, of course, at HallOfFameFantasyFootball.com for Mr. Sofka. Appreciate you as always, Mike. Thank you so much for being a part of the show, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
All right, Dan. Thanks a lot.
Take care. That coming from Mike Sofka here inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour. Not one of, not a, but the Fantasy Football Power Hour. Brought to you by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Make sure you head out there today and enjoy your time at a beautiful, wonderful, local restaurant and bar that welcomes everybody and finds a way to have people of all ages, and it just works. You got kids there, you got teenagers there, you have, adults, you have people that are drinking, people that are there on a date, people that are there just to have a sandwich, people that are playing volleyball, and it all works and it all comes together at the Wildcat. So big time thanks to them for everything they do with us with fantasy football, and of course everything they do with us with our exclusive West Genesee Wildcats show that's there every single month on site, on location at the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York, open 7 days a week. And of course you can call them for takeout and delivery at 315-487-2222. That's 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat. So make sure you hop over there and do that today. With that being stated, we'll take our final step aside inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios and wrap things up right after this.
Cafe Cabal Mobile Cafe brings the cafe experience to you. We'll roll out to your neighborhood or office, ready to serve our locally crafted espresso bar to our loyal patrons. Inquire at cafecubal.com. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, located on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, is home to over 40 flavors with more than 200 flavors in their total wheelhouse. Sky's the limit for this sweet and savory Central New York company. Keep it local at your parties, fundraisers, wedding showers, baby showers, and more by calling 315-450-MA-PA. That's 315-450-6272 for popcorn bars with custom flavors and colors at your upcoming event. Make sure to visit them on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And for more information, go to maandpazsnacks.com. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is worth the drive every single time. Find your way to the Millhouse Market and download their app on the Google Play and Apple App Store so that you can have everything at your fingertips. They make it so easy. The most difficult decision that you will make when it comes to the Millhouse Market is what you're going to order versus everything that's on the menu. Such a great place to go to. So many great things on the menu. And I want to thank them for their homemade breads and their desserts, their quinoa bowls, rice bowls, salads, brick oven pizzas, and sandwiches named after the families that helped to settle today's Pulaski. It is ingrained in our taste buds, ingrained in our community, and open for you Tuesday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., Sunday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., closed on Monday. And when I say open Tuesday through Sunday, that means the drive-thru is open to grab your food and go. They have the drive-up window, making it very easy. How many local places have a drive-up window? Incredible. So they have that for you. They have the general store with local products from local companies, and they have the indoor dining where you can sit inside and relax and have a great time. Grab yourself a drink and enjoy their fantastic food. The bee sting pizza, the margarita pizza, the steak and blue pizza, the meatball sandwich, the Cobb salad, the M&M cookies, the raspberry muffins, and on and on and on. The maple brownies, so many things to get at the Millhouse Market. It is absolutely positively worth the drive every time. Your taste buds will thank you. And somebody who does so well in our community, and Rebecca Alford, she is an incredible person who works tirelessly at just serving the community. And that service should be appreciated, respected, and promoted, which is why we are so happy at Wake Up Call to have the Millhouse Market as a partner and able to tell you about a great place to go to, whether you live in the community or you're visiting for just a little while. So head out to the Millhouse Market on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York. Worth the drive every time. With that being stated here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, I want to thank Mr. Mike Sofka for being a part of the show all the way through, talking about every NFC backfield, all 16 teams, giving you a giant fantasy football power hour times 2, brought to you by the Wildcat Sports Pub, and providing for you a video that you can go back and watch before your draft, during your draft, at any time. All of our fantasy football videos are located on wakeupcalldt.com by clicking on the fantasy football tab or clicking underneath the tab on fantasy broadcast. You can also get them all by becoming a member, subscribing for free to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. That's youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. So go ahead and do that. We'll see you there. We appreciate you as always. Find us on Facebook at wakeupcalldt, Twitter at CallDT, and Instagram at wakeupcall_DT, 24/7 on wakeupcalldt.com and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. And of course, as always, God bless, no stress, do your best. Tomorrow, Papa Joe returns to the show with plenty of Jaguars comments and talk and all the good things coming up. And Dave Paziak rejoins us to give us an update on his thoughts on the NBA playoffs this Thursday. Coming up right here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You know where to be. Find us here on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt to listen. Also on wakeupcalldt.com, facebook.com/livenowdt, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And of course, you can search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and find us on all of these beautiful outlets: MixLR, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podbean, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, and as aforementioned, on YouTube as well with the archive. After the show goes live, it's immediately added to the archive. And of course, a special thanks to all of our Central and Upstate New York partners: Cafe Cubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Honda City of Liverpool, Avicoli's, where we will be tonight, Wednesday, May 26th at 6 p.m. with Erin Anderson and her Girls Lacrosse team of Liverpool, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Pizza Man, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, the Millhouse Market, and Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. And you can go to Ma and Pa's popcorn.com and use the promo code DT20 for 20% off. You can see that Chick-fil-A has added to Cicero Clay, and you can see the new logos of Victory, Sports Medicine, and Orthopedics, and PB&J's Lunchbox. Plenty coming up in June, and giving you a little taste of what's to come on Wake Up Call as we expand right here, where sports meets life. With that being said, I hope you have a tremendous, tremendous day. God bless, no stress, do your best, and we will talk soon. Be well, everybody, and have a great day. What up, homeboy?
My girl, what's up?
Let me say one thing to you, and you get to